What's up, everybody? It's Jeffrey Lyles, welcoming you to another installment of Lyles Figure Files. Today, I'm going to ask the question posed by one Joshua Ford. Left a comment and said, basically, we as a community are our own worst enemy. And I'm going to read Joshua's comments in a second, but I really appreciate him and everybody else who's been dropping comments, and I've really made sure to try to respond to everyone. So if I haven't yet, just know I will get to you. I was thinking, like, man, when every time there's a figure reel, every time there's a live stream, you can see it in the chat. I pop out the chat because it's annoying. But you get people, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. Oh, this figure sucks. It's terrible. And, so there's always that back and forth. It's something you can be really excited about. Somebody just comes and craps over it, like, oh, this is wrong, and here's why, and here's the comic accurate pictures. And it's like, all right, this figure does suck because it's not accurate. And I was so happy before I knew that. So Joshua was responding to the video I posted where I said basically RIP to the Star Wars Black Series army building potential, because between just the difficulty of finding Star Wars figures on shelves, the increase in prices to $25, which basically takes away one army builder. So if you were buying, like Stormtroopers or Clone Troopers, if you saw that many in stores at one time, you could have bought 5 for the price of $100. And now you're only going to get 4. And that's when you put it in those terms, it's like, man, I'm literally missing out an entire figure because of these price increases. And no matter which way you look at it, that's a crappy deal. So we've got that. We've also got the just difficulties with exclusives being given to stores that haven't been the greatest about stocking figures, like Walgreens. I still have no idea why Walgreens has an exclusive Clone Trooper when they can't get Star Wars figures on the shelves at all. So I had all these problems, and I just was like ranting away. And I think based on the comments, a lot of you felt the same way, that this is getting out of hand. It's really hard to be a collector of these 6-inch figure lines when Hasbro and Mattel are raising the prices and not really delivering as much to show why we're paying these extra prices. So let me read Joshua's comments, and because I feel like it's important to break down, and I think that he raised a lot of good points to a degree, but I want to break them down as well. I hear nothing but complaints. Distribution bad. Order online. I've never had any issues getting a figure. Leia from Java will most likely be a San Diego Comic-Con thing or online only. Definitely not going to be sold in stores. The whole hunting in store days are over as well. My Target eliminated Legends. Guys, it's not the 2000s anymore. Gotta doubt. Yeah, prices are high. Then adjust and cut back on collecting multiple lines or only collect a favorite era. We as a community are our own worst era. Cool. All right, Joshua, thank you so much for sending those comments. And I'm not responding in a way to trash or whatever. I really appreciate the comments, but I just wanted to address them. So first and foremost, got that out the way. All right, the distribution does suck. And Target is terrible for finding things online because sometimes they just don't list it, and that's tricky. You have to go to Entertainment Earth, Big Bad Toy Store. If you want them, put links up. You've never had an issue getting a figure. That's amazing, because I have, I tend to go out every week just to go for random things. Oh, I need some deodorant. Let me go to Target's figure out while I'm here. And sometimes, oh, I could use some more soda. Oh, while I'm here, let me go to the figure out. Anyhow, that's always a tricky thing. If you want to go online, yeah, okay, that's cool. You do that. Totally agree about San Diego Comic-Con being a good option for Slave Leia. And hunting in stores is a lot trickier, I feel like, since the pandemic. And I'm sure a lot of that is just because there's a backlog of figures sitting on cargo ships waiting to be unloaded and taken to our local stores. So we got that covered. That sucks that your Target eliminated Legends. My closest Walmart is atrocious. It's awful and terrible. I feel like they haven't stocked anything worthwhile in decades. It's just the store I don't even bother going by. There's another Walmart that's not close by, but it's so similar to the layout and the amount of figures it has to this closest Walmart near me that I'm just like, I never need to go to you ever again. So if they have some amazing stuff, I'd never know because I just assume it doesn't have anything. And Joshua then goes, it's not the 2000s anymore. We've got to adapt. Your prices are high. Cut back on collecting multiple lines. That's the part I'm kind of like, man, that's so easier said than done, because for a lot of us, we've been collecting these lines. We've invested heavily. Um, they're lines like Masters of the Universe, where you can have that complete collection where they're done. And if you want them all, you can just go back and you can pay whatever you need to get them. And then there's still things like, hey, Super 7 putting out a Snake Mountain that's still coming out, right? And if you gotten all these figures, like I did to an extent, it's kind of like, man, I really want a Snake Mountain. That would be a really cool figure display piece, but where am I going to put it? But for active lines that are still going on, Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black Series, G.I. Joe, Transformers, etc., you name it, WWE, there's lots of figures that are still viable, and it's not a thing of, well, I just need to collect this era of X-Men, and I'm only going to collect the 90s Avengers. You want the comprehensive line because you've been collecting 70s Avengers, 80s Avengers, 90s Avengers, 2000s Avengers. What up, Triathlon? Still waiting on that Marvel Legends figure of him. Anyhow, I don't think that is necessarily the answer. I think waiting on clearance and Target sales and coupons is a better way to handle it, because it's just like for most of us, we're so far sucked in that it's not going to end with I'm out because it's $25. This is really not good. It's not cool because you guys really don't need to. Let me take a look, because speaking of this, you guys really don't need to. I was just thinking about what Joshua said. I was like, man, are we our own worst enemy? Because, man, maybe these companies are really suffering. I remember back in the days when Ravens went Maniacs Forum, there would be executives, decision makers from figure lines going, hey, guys, if you want to see Wave 3, if you want to see Wave 4, we need your support at retail. And dating 20 years back, that was the mentality a lot of us had. Oh, man, we've got to keep this line rolling. There were so many figure lines that we saw over the last 15 years that were really promising. They got canceled or were done because there wasn't enough interest in them. And then we've taken this mentality for every line now. We've got to support it. We've got to make sure that we buy them when they first hit the pegs, because we don't want these peg warmers to ruin our chances of the next line. And I think to some degree, companies are taking advantage of that adult collector mentality of, we've got to support with our dollars. And now it's like, well, since you guys have been consistently doing that, we're going to take more of your dollars. Again, for me, an army builder, building a nice set, 5 or 6 is a good amount. And just 3 years ago, or even 2 years ago, you could buy 5 army builders for $100. Now you're going to pay that same price to only get 4. And that just doesn't feel right. I know there's, plastic's increasing. But you know what else is increasing? The profit from these companies, which is really kind of terrible when you look at it from the, hey, we're going to stop selling toys and everything in Russia, but we're going to pass those costs on to you because you asked for it, which we did. So let me take a look here. So back in 2019, Hasbro's annual revenue was $4.72 billion with a B, not M. That was a 3.07 increase over 2018. Okay, that's great. Nice job. Yay, Hasbro. Still, okay, that's cool, but how'd you do the next year? Good thing you asked. So in 2020, their annual revenue was $5.465 billion. That is a 15.79 increase from 2019. That's huge. And now, mind you, this is still back with the $19.99 figure price tag. Hasbro's revenue from 2021, heat of the pandemic still, was $6.42 billion, a 17.47 increase from 2020. So from 2020, 2019, and 2018, Hasbro saw significant increases in their annual revenue. And from 2019 to 2020, it's a 15.79 increase. Super massive increase. The annual revenue from 2021 did not end this trend. So $6.42 billion. That was a 17.47% increase. Projections for 2022 as of March 31st were Hasbro is going to see an 18.16% increase. So Hasbro is not struggling. They are not having any issues with, oh man, how are we ever going to put another arm with this Spider-Man figure? They're doing just fine. And so as not to just single out Hasbro, let's take a look at Mattel. So they actually had a decrease in 2019, a 4.505 billion revenue, which was a 0.23% decline from 2018. Things turned around in 2020, and that was 4.588 billion, a 1.86% increase. In 2021, their increase was 5.458 billion, which was an 18.95% increase. So these guys are racking up double digit increases with their figures. And 2021, we started seeing like around maybe August, this uptick in prices where it was like, hey, we need to raise them to $22.99. And in some cases with Mattel, we're going to take it up to $21.99. And I was like, okay, I don't like that. But now I'm shifting up to $24.99. It's not great, especially looking at these numbers where Hasbro and Mattel are doing just fine. They're seeing a major increase in their profits while we're still getting the same figures. We're getting retro figures that don't have a builder figure. And that was a component that was a major thing with every Marvel Legends series since Series 9 of Toy Biz. That was part of the deal. That was kind of like the collector company agreement. Every wave is going to have a piece to build another figure. But with Toy Biz, those builder figures were skyscraper size. And Hasbro has gradually shrunk those down to the point where we can get a builder figure of Okoye and Mantis and be like, but now they're ripping us off because we're not getting the builder figures with this retro style packaging, which is in a whole lot of plastic, which Hasbro's trying to get rid of. So now we're going to get boxes of retro figures. And that seems kind of weird. I don't know how that's going to work out because they've already started this where, hey guys, remember this old classic packaging? I mean, that's the lore of the retro packaging, right? That it looks the way it did back when prices were more reasonable for these figures. Now we're seeing that amazing fantasy Spider-Man. It's in a box. It's going to be $27.99, and there's no retro appeal to that figure. There's not enough added to it to warrant a $27.99 price tag. It's just, hey, it's Spider-Man. It's the anniversary. People want to buy it. Let's see if we can get our percent increases for 2022 up to 20%. I feel like that's not cool. And Joshua's going, we as a collector are our own worst enemy because we're griping about stuff. But there are not a lot of 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds that their parents can be like, yeah, Johnny, I'm going to give you this $27.99 action figure. These prices are geared for us as an adult collector. And if you're trying to do business with adults, you have to, and granted, based on some chats and live stream reactions, we're not all fully adults, but when you're doing things with adults, you have to deal with the consequences of selling things to adults instead of children. Children are like, yeah, sure, we'll take whatever. But as adults, we can go, hey, this is Spider-Man. Why can't you fix a pen? And let me read this other one because this was also good. One of my buddies from Push, Xavier. And he wrote in and said, we need less quality, or we need less quality. We need less quantity and more quantity. Gosh, I'm going to say that right this time. We need less quantity and more quality. So many of the figures being released would be superfluous if Hasbro had just done it right the first time. It's like, okay, first we're going to do pins in the wrong color scheme. Then we'll do pins in the right color scheme. Then we'll do no pins and the wrong color scheme. Then we'll do no pins and the right color scheme. Along the way, we'll do a few other redecos, throw in a head or an extra set of hands, and boom, we've sold the same figure to the same collector multiple times. Yay, us. Meanwhile, we're supposed to pay 25% to over 50% more. I'm starting to feel like we're being played for suckers. I think we deserve better than that after the way we've supported the line all these years. So Damien definitely has that mentality, that mindset that I had of, hey, I want to see these lines. I want to see Marvel Legends continue. I've already gone through a period where Marvel Legends, the 6-inch line, was done because the figures were awful. And no one wanted to buy a sucky Emma Frost Banshee, Black Knight, Cat Beast, etc. figures because they looked awful. The sculpts were terrible. The paint jobs were terrible. The articulation also terrible. And hey, we had to support the Marvel Universe 3/3/4 finish line. Okay, this is the new thing. All right, great. And then those figures got terrible and crappy over time. Bad articulation, bad likenesses, etc. Who cares? We got our 6-inch Marvel Legends back. So we've been conditioned to not want to see these lines that we collect and invest in go, get canceled. And there's several lines that I got into and I was like, oh man, I want this full set. And then it gets ended. Case of what, McFarlane Toys Walking Dead line. I didn't think those figures were awesome and great, but they were Walking Dead figures. And I still never got some characters that I thought were super essential. And it's kind of weird not to have them, but that's what I'm talking about. But when you see Hasbro, when you see Mattel making so much off of us, and their increases of, these massive gains they've had over the years, consistently. It's not like, oh man, last year they had a really good run. I would so prefer if Hasbro and Mattel's percentage, their revenue was dropping, because then I'd be like, all right, I understand. I get it. You guys are charging $25 because your rate, your revenue is plummeting. And I'm down for the line. I'm going to invest. I'm with you guys. You guys have cranked out all these great figures over the years. I'm with you. So I get it. And if I have to pay a little more, then I'll do that. But when they're making so much money, I feel a huge certain kind of way when they're going, all right, well, good news. We're making a whole lot of money and we're going to charge you even more. And you guys didn't bulk enough at $22.99. So we're going to charge you $24.99 for these figures. I'm not really feeling it. And I think some collectors really are the worst enemy to the collector as a whole, because they're trying to excuse these companies for their decisions, their choices. Oh, well, you didn't have to buy that Iron Man with the blue arc reactor. You could have just waited until they did the one with the yellow like you wanted. And yeah, that's cool, but how am I going to get the head for the Mr. Hyde figure that I did want? That's not quite comic accurate either. And, maybe they'll do an exclusive with Walmart later on, Mr. Hyde that you should have gotten in the first place. And I know it's this thing of we want to support this stuff. But it's also, is this going to be the only figure I get? Is this going to be the only chance I get to get a figure of this character that I really like? Like, I didn't think the Rage figure was great, but I love New Warriors. So I guess I want to get this Rage figure so I have some representation. Even though his skin tone was bad, he had one expression. You want to say, hey, let's increase the value for these figures. Toss an extra head that doesn't have him raging out. Quick example. But I mean, I can look at Mattel and I can see, hey, with their WWE line, they have been including extra heads. They've added double jointed elbows to the figures. I can see improvements to these figures. And it didn't happen as soon as they jumped the prices. I mean, in some cases they were $19.99, and then hey, we got double jointed elbows. And then the price tag jumped to $22.99 or $21.99 in their case. But I feel like I'm seeing where they've improved. With Marvel Legends, I'm like, okay, yeah, great. You added double jointed elbows and bicep articulation for your women characters. We've been asking for that for years. That's not something that's like, hey, this is why the prices are now $24.99 for these figures. And that's not enough. And we're seeing so much reuse on these figures. And they're essentially repaints with a few added sculpted parts. And I'm just not seeing that $25 value. If McFarlane Toys charged $25 for figures, I'm like, okay, I'd really love for you to get your scale worked out so Batman is not taller than Martian Manhunter and Aquaman's eyes weren't looking shifty to the left. But you can tailor those figures. Individual sculpting on just about every figure. I mean, if there's reuse, it's kind of hard to determine. And if there is, it kind of makes sense for when they do it. But there's so much sculpting, so much unique parts on these figures at 7 inches, not 6 inches. And according to this plastic game where the plastic has gone up and oil prices, blah, 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 these figures should be $40 because they're a whole inch more than the Marvel Legend figures. They are actually wider, use more plastic, and are individual figures the whole way through. And yeah, they're holding pretty steady at $19.99. If you buy a Builder figure, then it's $24.99. And I still think that's a fair price for what McFarlane's giving us as collectors. Sure, their accessories are awful and the clunky Batarang is terrible and sucky, but we're getting more figure for that price. So I'm not really willing to hold the flag up and defend Hasbro and Mattel's honor because I feel like they have not held up their end of the bargain for adult collectors. They're going, hey, let's just see how much more we can get from them. And honestly, you're a parent, probably is a better value to get your kid a $500 game system and $50 games, because eventually the cost of 4 waves of figures will balance that out anyway. So that's my whole rant on this. I think we are our own worst enemies collectors because we're trying to make sense and rationalize with these companies that are making double-digit % increases on their revenues when they're charging us more for figures and giving us less. But I was able to go out this week, and it's so funny because after I read this comment from Joshua, which I thought was really thoughtful, and I really loved the way Joshua approached it, hey, respect and dignity are the way that we can always have a dialogue and conversation, so I'm all about it. So I went to Target and found some new figures. I'm back on the screen now, and I found the latest wave, I guess, of Mandalorian figures. So I got the Black Series Ahsoka. And I got the Death Watch Mandalorian. Wow, it's too much light. There we go. Gosh, you can see it. All right. And Echo to complete my bad batch without Omega. So I was really happy about that, but not so happy when I went to the register and they clocked in at $24.99. Fortunately, Target still has their price scanners ringing up the old price of $22.99. So what you should do, if you're not, take a picture of that. And just in case you get an associate who doesn't believe you. But take a picture of that $22.99 price tag that I saw and go up to the registered price, the self-checkout, and just show them that. And they should adjust it with no problem. But this is definitely time to get these figures because they're going up. And, you know, I take a look at a guy like Echo, and I feel like, man, that's a really nice, that's a great $19.99 figure. And that's a really decent $22.99 figure. At $25, I don't know about that one. And so the thing with being a Star Wars collector is they're really hard to get on clearance because they don't stand shelves very long. So I don't know what to tell you. I will pay $25 for these G.I. Joe Classified series because I'm a sucker for G.I. Joe. And the line is still fresh. And I feel like they're putting a lot more effort into this series as opposed to Marvel Legends, Star Wars, even Power Rangers. But you get what I'm saying. But yeah, thanks so much as always for listening to me ramble on. Thank you so much for subscribing. I mean, these numbers are going crazy, and I'm really loving that people are loving what I'm putting out. And I will continue to put out more as long as you guys watch it. So let's keep this thing rolling. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have an awesome weekend. This episode of Loud Figure Files has been filed.